Welcome back to CityWise. I'm your host, Tiana Stevens. Rochester is known as a generous community whose citizens are often willing to give their time and talent for causes larger than themselves. And the Rochester Protectives, a volunteer firefighter assistance organization, are a great example of that generosity. The Protectives work alongside city firefighters with the mission of protecting lives and property from fire damage. Joining us today is Scott Owen, Chief of the Rochester Protectives. Thanks for joining us today.
Glad to be here. Thank you for asking.
Thank you. Let's start with the history of the Rochester Protectives. Long history here.
Long history. And to make a long story short, back in the 1800s, the city of Rochester and the surrounding villages had several different fire companies. And when a fire would come in, they'd fight each other for the rights to that fire. And after a while, it got kind of old. And the city founders says, well, you know, let's start making our own dedicated Rochester Fire Department. So that came about, and then the Protectives kind of stayed their own as a salvage company operation. So a different entity from the Rochester Fire Department, but they serve the RFD as well. And here we are today, 156 years later.
And can you tell us a little bit about yourself, how you became involved with the Protectives?
I applied for the fire department in '87. I always wanted to be a fireman growing up. And applied, and I said, what else can I do to better my chances? And I found out about the Protectives. So I joined in '88. I got hired on the RFD in 1990, and I still remain a member of the Protectives, a social member. There's two different. The social members just take care of the business of the firehouse, and the active members actually go on calls.
Okay.
And I still remain a member of the Protectives to this day, and now I'm chief.
All right. Are the Protectives unique to Rochester?
They're unique to the country, actually. The only similar salvage and overhaul company that existed up until 9/11 was FDNY. And after the events of 9/11, they kind of disbanded that business end of it.
Okay.
So the Protectives have remained the only salvage and overhaul company to assist the fire department in the country. And it's a pretty good
That's pretty remarkable.
notoriety.
Yeah, it is. Can anyone become a member? How does one become a member?
All you have to be is 18 years old. You go down, there's two ways to apply. You either go online, rochesterprotectives.com, or go to the firehouse and ask for an application. 18 is the minimum age. The background is pretty intensive. We do an actually RPD background, arson investigator, for obvious reasons.
Sure.
Background check for that. We send you through the same physical as the Rochester Fire Department members do. And it's a process. You got to get voted in. You have references and stuff. We just don't take anybody off the street, but we need dedicated people who want, you don't have to be a firefighter to join the Protectives. There's other duties that we can do.
Okay. Well, do you find that, you mentioned for yourself you were interested in becoming a firefighter, so it was kind of like a foot in the door. Do you find that it's a pathway to a career?
Oh, absolutely, especially with the Rochester Fire Department, because you get to know the operation aspect of it. You get to know what you have to do or what's required of you. And up until this date, 1/3 of the people who are actually RFD members right now came through or are still members of the Protectives.
Okay.
So we have a good following,
Once a candidate is accepted, what is the training like?
Well, we're lucky right now because I've had a unique opportunity to be able to be a state fire instructor and Monroe County fire instructor. So I'm, through my avenue, through the public safety training facility, are able to have a little extra training with them. But the main goal I want to see for the RFD and the Protectives is training. You got to know what to do or what not to do at a fire scene, because your actions could, make it better or worse on the scene. So what I want to know for the RFD is when you see a Protective show up, that they are trained, they know what to do to assist the RFD so they can do their job. And training is pretty important.
Okay. What sort of time commitment would a volunteer need to
That's a great question. When you join the Protectives and you get accepted, you have to provide at least 12 hours a week to the Protectives, which means sleeping over. We call it bunking.
Okay.
And we usually are quite accommodating with what night of the week you're assigned to. And that's the minimum. You could always show up more. You could always put in more hours. But in order to be exempt, which means if you become exempt, you don't have to stay at the firehouse one night a week anymore. But you can still ride the fire truck, you still go to calls, you can do everything you want, but it releases you from that 12-hour-a-week commitment. And that's for 5 years. I know it's a pretty big commitment, but we've had thousands of people come through who are able to do it.
Wow. Okay. Can you share a story with us that kind of highlights the mission of the Rochester Protectives?
This is I'm glad you said that. 'Cause I have had unique opportunity to be able to be a state fire instructor in Monroe County fire instructor. So I'm, through my avenue, through the public safety training facility, are able to have a little extra training with them. The main goal I want to see for the RFD and the Protectives is training. You got to know what to do or what not to do at a fire scene. There's other duties that we can do. when you see a fire going on, there's a lot of chaos to the general public. There's a lot. It seems like everybody's going all over the place, but it's actually like a coordinated effort. There's people, with the hoses going in, people setting up outside, people getting water from the hydrants and smashing windows or cutting holes in roof, and it looks pretty chaotic. But it's like a ballet, and professionals, we know how to do that. The Protectives, but when they show up to a scene, assist with changing the air bottles on the RFD members. Protectives actually go in to the burning structure, and their goal is to strive to save. That's our motto. So if you think about it, you have a house fire going on and the RFD's doing their job. What about their possessions? I mean, if the fire burns a roof off, you could build a new roof, or destroys a bedroom, you could always build it. But pictures and say someone's piano or heirlooms, we try to put them together and cover them protected. They can always get a new piece of house, but pictures of grandma or the heirlooms you can't replace. And insurance companies love that too. The less they have to pay out, the better.
Sure. Is there such thing as a typical night for the Protectives? Can you walk us through? It could be
quiet as a church, or chaotic as if you're on your night, usually show up around 6 o'clock in the evening, and then with your group, you're assigned to a night. And so first thing you worry about is dinner. What are we going to eat that night? And then once that's over, then the officer will have some training. Each night they do a little training, and that's extra on top of all the training that we give them. And it's kind of like, we call it in-house training. And from the operation of the equipment, make sure the maintenance is working, all the lights are working. And after that, it's kind of like downtime, usually 9, 10 o'clock at night. And they respond to the calls. They go to every working structure fire. The Protectives respond to water problems, which is in a business or a house. You got a flood or something like that. They have the equipment to pump out basements, or in a commercial, cover expensive equipment, computer, if a sprinkler lets go, for example, and then you have all those expensive desks and computers laying around. The first job is to protect that property. And there's other things that the public, doesn't know about, like at a fire scene. We'll light the scene for the RFD, so they don't have to do it. They can concentrate on life safety. We provide fans at a fire scene for ventilation of the house. And recently I've been working with the safety officer to have a rehab set up. The Protectives are going to be assisting Rural Metro with a rehab station for the firefighters after they're done, because we got to give them a place to rest. Take off their equipment, air out, and get their vitals checked.
Definitely. What would you say is the value of services provided to the citizens of Rochester each year by the Protectives?
Well, one of the things is the general public doesn't know what we do. They just see a bunch of firemen with their gear and helmets and show up, and they just figure that's what we do. But very few of them know that these people are actually with the red helmets. That's how you can identify them. They had people. Who are the people with the red helmets? They saved all my furniture and stuff like that. They think it's their RFD, but it's Protectives do it. And it's a financial thing, but it's more emotional thing too for the family, because we save their stuff that cannot be replaced. And to the insurance companies too, we assisted them. If we cover the furniture, that's that much less it has to be replaced. And it's a win-win for everybody.
Definitely. How are the Rochester Protectives funded?
Actually, they're under a small portion of the RFD. The RFD supplies the fire truck, if you will. We have a paid RFD member as a driver, so the volunteers don't have to drive to the calls. And they provide all the equipment and the training through volunteers and stuff at the academy. But if it weren't for the City of Rochester, the Rochester Fire Department, we would be history. And we're not going to let that happen.
Right. What are some of the challenges that the Protectives face?
Some of the people, when we get in there, they don't know the commitment aspect of it. They're like, well, yeah, I could do 12 hours a week and then they get in there and they get overwhelmed, or they have a change in jobs, or they got hired by the RFD, and very many of them do, and so they can't really volunteer for the Protectives anymore because they're busy going to recruit training. But I digress.
All right. How do you engage the citizens of Rochester?
Well, the past couple of chiefs have been bringing up the Protectives to the times. Before it was the old school, we're just going to sit there and go to our calls and do it and sit back there, and we're going to get recruited by word of mouth or through friends of the fire department. But lately, we've been becoming more, if you will, modernized, getting out to the public more, advertising for ourselves for the more, and just being another
social
aspect.
media.
Social like this, and this is the first opportunity we've had to. And through social media we just want the public to know that we're out there for them, and if they want to be part of us, so be it. Even if you belong to another volunteer fire company locally, you can actually be a member of the Protectives too, because we're not considered a firefighting business, if you will. We're salvage and overhaul, but so that allows different members to apply and be part of us.
Now, do you go out and actively recruit, or do you host events?
Myself and Abraham Cruz teaches he's a retired fireman, and he teaches for the city school district. We did a careers, the Pathways of Careers, and where we get young students in the high schools. They can go to 911. They can go to rural metro. RPD has them. State police has them. They rotate through different ones. As a junior to see if they might be interested in a pathway to public service. So we were out there last Thursday at the city school district office trying to recruit, if you will, or just give an option.
Okay.
And if they want to join us until they have an opportunity to take the test for the Rochester Fire Department, then so be it. We'll take them and train them.
That's great. Do you rely on any other partnerships throughout the city to get the job done?
I don't know what you mean by that. So.
Oh, well, you mentioned the city school district, rural metro. How do you work together to achieve your mission?
Everybody, it's almost like a unified command. That's what we call it when everybody shows up at a fire scene. And the more events we incur with each other, the Red Cross is a big one too. They're like, who are the people with red helmets? So they're volunteers, really? And so they know what, just by showing up at a scene. We learn from each other. We can network that way, if you will.
Okay. What's your most memorable moment as a protective or firefighter? What can you share with us?
Oh, as a firefighter? Oh, as a protective, I'll go there. Getting on the job, getting to the Protectives, and finally learning to be what the firehouse is all like, and then finally getting that letter to get on the RFD. The Protectives showed me so much along the way, and I was blessed to have good leaders who were Protectives and never wanted to be firefighters, but they taught me different things to do and what not to do on my way up to the RFD. And so my most memorable moment as the RFD is just getting on the job.
That's wonderful. What would you say to someone who was considering volunteering for the Protectives?
It's a learning experience. You dedicate with pride. That's once you do something that the community, can appreciate, it makes you feel better. Especially even just training. You're having a good time training, and you feel better about yourself because you knew you're doing. You could have stayed in the firehouse all that night and not done anything outside, but just the camaraderie and the knowledge that you're there learning and providing a service to the RFD and the citizens. It's a nice feeling.
Well, we appreciate it. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
To learn more about the Rochester Protectives, you can call 546-1284 or go to rochesterprotectives.com. Thanks for joining us on this edition of CityWise. I'm Tiana Stevens, and we'll see you next week.